I choose diversity. Because who wants a one flavor world?
Hello, and welcome back to Panacea9 with Gloria Y. Thank you for being here again. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening. I don't know where you are in the world, but wherever you are, I hope you're doing well and you're looking forward to my conversation with my new guest this week. We have here with us Bayan Shahzadeh. Hello, Bayan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. My name is Bayan. This is my mother, Gloria.
Oh my God, he gave it away. Go, keep going.
This is my first time on the show and looking forward to it.
So you got me. This is nepotism at its best. He gave it away right at the beginning.
Was I supposed?
No. It's okay. It's okay. I love it. I love that you did it. So anyway, at least I know we've grown past the time of moms being an embarrassment.
No, come on.
Oh, come on. I'm sure we've gone through that period. Bayan, I know you're my son, and so I'm your mother, but I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Not as my son, but as a young professional, educated professional, who has done so much in his young life. I know you well, but folks out there don't. So why don't you tell us about your beginnings, your middle, and now?
Sure. To start, I was born 25 years ago in Haifa, Israel. Bit unique for sure, but I think it's a super interesting and fun fact tidbit about myself. Growing up, a lot of people, when I told them, just almost didn't believe me or thought it was a joke or something like that. But I was born there and spent about, I think it was around 9 months until we moved back to Canada for a year. Both my parents kind of went to school here and had roots with family, so came back for a year, and then we all relocated again to Dubai in 2000, I think it was.
That's right.
And that was also really interesting because we spent about 9 years there, and my brother was born there, so we were both kind of born, in different parts of the Middle East, and we're able to kind of get different upbringings, which was interesting. And then after spending about 9 years there, me, my mom, and my brother moved back to Canada in 2008, and we've effectively been here ever since. So, I've kind of had multiple very different, unique places to grow up with different perspectives and backgrounds, and have met a whole host of people from around the world. And I think that's always been something I found interesting is, you get perspectives from those who have completely different backgrounds than you, different cultures. And ever since coming here, it's been pretty good. Went to university here, studied economics at Wilfrid Laurier, and got a job in finance in the field that when I was in school and doing my internships, I thought was all I wanted in life, and I finally got it. So it's been good. I've been there for about 3 years now, full time. And
okay, so it's interesting what Bayan said. Okay, he said that he was born in Israel, and his brother, my younger son, was born in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. So I always joke with people saying that I've got the Arab-Israel affair right in my home. And they did fight like Arabs in Israel.
And Iranians.
And Iranians, yeah. So you said something about how, at school, I don't know if you said at school or just growing up, that you having been born in Israel was a phenomenon. But why though? Why would it be so weird?
I just don't think it's something that's, expected for a Iranian Canadian, right? Like a lot of my friends, we grew up in Richmond Hill, which is virtually all Iranians, and at school, like almost everybody was either born here or born there, and their families moved. So I think like whenever people found out, they almost thought it was it's always like, where you, is this like a joke about the conflict or something? Are you like trying to be funny? But it's like, no, it's that's actually what happened, and it's super fascinating, and again, just adds to the multiple perspectives being, like culturally.
So did you, I know that those were kids. This is when you were still in school. Did you feel some sort of prejudice from the maybe Iranian kids or maybe Pakistani kids or?
I mean, sometimes, funny enough, yeah, and you know, you always chalk it up to them just being kids and joking and whatnot, but you know, sometimes like I almost felt a bit, you know, uncomfortable at times. You know, it's something that they weren't expecting, and you know, depending on people's backgrounds and how they were raised and what they believe in, right? Like sometimes prejudices do shine through, and you know, whether they're like they're meaningful or not. You know, obviously at the end of the day, these were school age kids, right? They probably just overheard, they overhear what their parents listen to,
and their perceptions have changed night and day.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, you know, sometimes you would kind of try to omit it until the last moment if possible, or
really.
Yeah,
I wish I had known that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Bayan had experienced that. For me, you know, I was always proud that my family was multinational.
Yeah, you know, our multiculturalism is our strength, right? Or at least that's how I see it.
That's the perfect way of talking about unity and diversity. I mean, there are all these different cultures, different backgrounds, but we are living together and celebrating our commonalities. You know, the differences don't even matter.
Exactly.
Or at least that's how I feel. So thank you for that great introduction to your life so far. What role do you think education plays in promoting understanding and acceptability in society? Because we just talked about, you know, how you were nervous when you were a kid to say where you were born, or you know, where your parents maybe were from, or whatever. But that has changed a lot, and people are more accepting these days. So my question is, what do you think education has to do with this progress or this development?
I mean, I think education obviously plays a massive role in everything that we do. It's like since growing up, and it shapes a lot of us. But like, I think what's changed over the years, which is for the better, is that I think now people are more comfortable being who they actually are at school, and like, you know, that kind of mentality of you have to conform to a certain, you know, like whether it's the nerd or the jock or something. I don't think like that really exists anymore. Not even when I was growing up, right? Like, because you see it on TV. But when I was there, like, people just kind of did whatever they wanted, right? Like, you express your own hobbies, whether it was sports, video games, clothes, you know, BMX biking, whatever you really like to do. Like, you could just like be proud of it and like kind of being accepting of each other. Again, the person sitting next to you doesn't look like you, or the person, you know, that you're sharing a group project with or sitting next to on the bus, like, probably had a much different upbringing than you. But that's all okay. And you know, friend groups I find are becoming more diverse, both racially and ethnically, but also more, you know, background wise. Guys and girls hang out more, you know, kids from different cities now. Like, the internet and social media has made it so that you're not necessarily confined to hanging out with the people in your neighborhood, right? I think the other thing that's important now is people are becoming much more accepting of different paths in life, and I think there's a lot more what you would call like non-traditional routes, you know, to happiness. And I'm going to use success, but I think success is obviously defined differently for everyone. Back in the day, kind of when I was even in school, I started uni in 2016, it was kind of almost seen as uni or bust, or especially the area we grew up in like a pretty, like studious, or like like everybody's kids' parents were like, you know, most like immigrant parents from across different parts of Asia and the Middle East and stuff. And the traditional understanding was you go to university, you do, you know, one of the usual immigrant degrees, and you know, go get it.
Immigrant degrees.
Yeah.
So we have a thing now. It's called immigrant degrees. Well, let me say something about that immigrant degree. You know, growing up in an Iranian family, you had to be boys, especially, not so much girls. Men had to be engineers or doctors.
Yeah. So that's what I meant, right? And like, I feel like now, like as we've all moved on, you don't really need, or like that doesn't really matter anymore. And people, and like for good reason, right? I think people realize there's so many more things you can do, and like happiness isn't necessarily defined by like job titles or monetary success.
All right, so I'm really glad you brought up some of the things, especially about what success means in your generation, what makes you happy, what the fact that you're free to pursue what you like. Now in my generation, when I was growing up, I didn't have that luxury. I wasn't even taken seriously because I thought that dramatic arts or dance or theater was a was a good thing, even though it's something that you could use to promote equality, to promote goodness in the world. It's a tool for you to make change. It wasn't looked at that way when I was growing up. I remember when I first mentioned that I wanted to study theater, I knew my parents would never go for it, but I thought, what the hell, let me just try it out. So I tried it out, and my father had an adult tantrum. So it was about 2 hours of tantrum about how I don't want to say stupid, but literally how stupid I was for thinking that could be a future. So it's good to see that now a young person, a young woman, a young man can decide to do whatever they want, and it's not stupid because it is what they want to do. It is how they want to bring change to the world, how they want to, their lives to develop. So that's great. It's great to see that. As a young professional, what seems to be the most important amongst your peers in today's societal backdrop? And to what extent are those things important to you personally?
Yeah, I think for most people my age and that I interact with, I think the general term everybody talks about is, I just want to be happy. And obviously people define happiness differently, but I think the general consensus of what being a happy 25-year-old is having a job that pays well enough to sustain your hobbies and your lifestyle, but also fulfills you, so you're not working for a company that you don't necessarily believe in, or for a boss that doesn't respect you or so. I think those things have become very important to people my age, that people will actually quit their jobs or switch jobs if they're not being valued or respected. I think that's changed, where now people actually want
so they won't let themselves be bullied, in other words.
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily bullied, but I think it's just people want to feel that they can be a character, they can
They're
be
valued.
seated at the table. I think that's something that matters.
So you travel a lot. Is that why you travel?
Yeah, I think so. I think a big thing for me is I only get a few weeks off work a year, and if I'm gonna not be working for those few weeks, I want to do something cool or do something I can do at home. I mean, I've always had this philosophy of never taking time off work and then just staying at home, because it just seems almost like a waste to me, because I'm just gonna wake up and I'll be like, I could have been at work today, right?
I love the fact that you travel. I just and I can say that because you're my son, and I know that you've traveled to maybe 3 continents: Europe, Asia, and America.
North America, Mexico, right? Central,
right. You went to Iceland.
Iceland would be Europe.
Oh, it's still okay. Yeah, it's Europe. All right, perfect. My next question: how about the issue of equality or inequality from a world perspective, in your opinion? And what role do you think intersectionality plays in understanding and addressing those issues?
Yeah, unfortunately, inequality still exists, right? Here and in a lot of parts of the world, worse than we have it here. So sometimes I think it's easy to forget.
Like where I was born, you mean?
Exactly, right? Or so I think sometimes it's easy to forget that some places don't have it as good as we do. But I think a major part of how it's getting better is I think, at least in the area I grew up in, the time I grew up in, whether it was at school or in the workforce, I think it's easier to see that they're trying their best to fix whatever issues were already outstanding. It's hard to kind of compare to other parts of the world, but I think increased globalization, and I think just seeing that it just makes sense for everybody to be equal, right? To be accepting. It's fascinating because even in North America, right, people still get really fired up over social issues that, in my opinion, should have been settled a long time ago, and now everybody just needs to learn how to move on and just accept others for who they are. But it seems that some people just can't really shake that. So that can be a bit frustrating. But I think the prevalence of social media and younger people's ability to speak out against these things has made it harder for those people to maintain those views, or at least harder for them to express them publicly without being shamed for them, which is a good thing.
Well, interesting. Your friend Roman.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a chat with him in another episode, and we talked about progress and how through the years we've moved on and we're more accepting. But then I brought up the Red Pill Society, you know, the Tates and Justin Waller and the likes of them, who literally pushed the younger generation, or at least a certain segment of young boys, not necessarily females, young boys, back so far, where they became these very radical, you know, non-accepting of, you know, women equality, or they thought that, you know, being a transgender is evil and devil incarnate and all of that. So there was some pushback against progress. So going back to my question, how do you think intersectionality is going to play a role in further understanding?
I just think that you know, like, those people exist and they're always going to have an audience because there's always people out there who are going to believe the same things as them. And like for as long as they're popular, it just gives people almost like a platform or an excuse to also echo those views. But I think, as like you said, those guys get shut down or they get kicked off of social media apps and have to go.
But then they make more money when they do.
Well, I mean, like, but like, I just don't, like, the people are always, they're gonna have pockets of support everywhere, right? And, you know, it's our job, I think, just to make sure that you can try, like, you don't entertain them or give them a platform. Like, if one of them starts arguing with you on social media or something, you just kind of ignore them.
But how about if we transfer the hate speech into, I don't want to say love speech because then you'll make fun of me, but into something loving and compassionate and accepting.
Well, who are the people you're trying to convince to do that? They despise those things, right? Like, they're not going to sit here and listen to a lecture from anyone on why what they're doing is right or wrong, right? Like, you just have to hope that these people, it's a flame that runs out of oxygen and eventually dies.
Oh, I love that.
Because, like, that's like all, you know, like sometimes you just have to let people run their mouths until they realize nobody else is listening. Because, like, honestly, there's no point. People express themselves differently. People have different, you know, ideas of like who they want to be and how they want to portray themselves, right? And you're not going to agree with everything everyone says.
No,
right?
and I don't think people should agree with each other all the time,
No.
because then we're all the same. When there's uniformity, I don't believe in uniformity. I don't want uniformity, but I do like unity. A place where people of all genders, all backgrounds, all ways of thinking, all ideologies can come together and still be loving towards each other, respecting each other. My last question is, if you were given a loudspeaker and you could announce to the world and give the entirety of the globe a message, what would that be?
Everybody be nice and get along for once. Just try to get along. Like,
to get along.
We have our differences and we'll always have our differences, but, you know, it's kind of frustrating when things that are supposed to bring us together, like religion, end up being the, like, a massive cause of conflict, right, or ire around the world. It shouldn't be, or our nationalities or ethnicities should never be, you know, hurdles.
A dividing factor.
Or they should never be speed bumps, right, for getting along.
Even if I weren't your mother, I would be proud of you.
Thank you.
And I mean that. From the bottom of my heart. I'm trying very hard not to embarrass you. Okay.
You're doing fine.
I'm doing fine. Do I pass?
Yes.
Thank you, son.
No problem.
Honestly, you and before you know the episodes passed, your friend Roman, give me a lot of hope for our future. so much hope that your generation, if you are an example, if you are a sample of what to look forward to, it makes me very happy. And even if I don't live to see a beautiful world, at least I know that you're beautiful.
Oh.
Your generation is beautiful. Your mind is beautiful. Your heart is beautiful, and all of that. And it's really, really a good sign in the world. And I hope people, my generation, my peers, would stop bashing our younger generation. You know, they have these expectations, but they don't know what those expectations are. Or the younger generation is lazy, or the younger generation doesn't wake up in the morning, or the younger generation doesn't know where they're going, or they're not saving money for a house. They are actually destroying barriers. They're coming together in peace and harmony with all of their differences. And I think that's a good sign. And I hope that you and your children, the generations to come, will have a much better global society than the one I grew up in. Thank you so much, Bayan.
Thank you for your time and for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great. Will you come back?
Yeah, sure. Next
really?
season?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm going to say goodbye. It's been great speaking to this young man. We have a lot of political conversations. We're both very much in tune with what's going on in the world, and we want to see a better world, so we get really nice conversations going sometimes. But it's good to share some of that conversation with our audience today. Thank you and goodbye.